As can be expected from opposing political ideologies, the way anti-Semitism is expressed in the contemporary far left is different from the way it is expressed in the far right. This stems, in part, from the different historical developments of this phenomenon in each sphere, and from the fact that as opposed to the anti-democratic and blatantly racist ideologies of the far right, the far left defines itself as anti-racist and anti-fascist. In many ways, it is a paradoxical form of anti-Semitism, as it exists amongst groups and individuals who believe, or at least publicly state, that they strongly oppose anti-Semitism. Before we examine the ways in which this anti-Semitism is manifested today, let's first explore this sphere's predicament with anti-Semitism.
Left-wing political thought has its own tradition of anti-Semitism that is different from the more common right-wing, religious, nationalist anti-Semitism that people are perhaps more familiar with.
Those of us who are in a left tradition need to understand that there is a very, very long tradition of people being tempted by anti-Semitism within our movement and within our intellectual milieu. Absolutely not to say that the left is and always has been anti-Semitic. It's not. But there has always been this struggle between a kind of temptation to anti-Semitism and the people who have opposed it.
The left has always been predominantly a movement committed to emancipation and to freedom, and opposed to racism and opposed to anti-Semitism. But it's always contained within it this particular trend of left-wing anti-Semitism, and it goes back to the earliest days of left-wing thought in the middle of the 19th century, when the left was starting to grapple with the idea of, are the Jewish people a nation? Or are they a religion? Where do they fit in the capitalist class structure, and what will their future be when capitalism is no longer with us in the progression of Marxist history? And this was coupled with the idea that the left has always seen itself as emancipating people from the predations of capitalism and from the cruelty and the poverty that comes about through capitalism. Now, there's an anti-Semitic strand of this form of anti-capitalism that says that it's not just that capitalism is the problem that we need to free the people from. Most of these capitalists are Jewish. And this is the anti-Semitic form. And that in order to liberate people from capitalism, you need to liberate them from the Jewish hand behind capitalism. Now, this has always, as I said, been a minority strain in left-wing thought, but it's always been there. And at times of great stress and a great strain, it comes out.
People on the left look around the world and they say, there's all sorts of terrible things going on in the world. There's all sorts of power imbalances and injustices and inefficiencies, and people have alienated lives and they're poor and they're hungry. And they say, how do we explain this and how can we change it? And one explanation that people are tempted by again and again is anti-Semitism. And often it's not explicit and it's not clear, but the left has always had difficulty understanding, thinking about the Jews. The Jews are either thought of as a kind of model of the oppressed, you know, the kind of image of the completely powerless Jew during the Holocaust, and the left can handle that, the left can think about that quite easily. Or, at the same time, the model of the Jew is somebody who is all too powerful, is, you know, somehow too powerful in the banking system, too powerful in the media, is cunningly and cleverly behind the structures that we can see, pulling the strings and the rest of it. So there are those two kinds of temptations, and both of them, of course, abstract, you know, real understandings of real Jewish men and women throughout the ages in different times and different places into an idea of the Jew. An idea of the Jew either as the symbol of oppression or as the symbol of oppressive power and imperialism and capitalism.
What is it then about anti-Semitism that allows it to exist in a realm that vehemently opposes any form of racism or xenophobia?
The reason why anti-Semitism fits with it is because, unlike most forms of racism that treats its targets as being more subhuman, as being weak and poor and diseased and almost like vermin who pollute the pure white race or the pure nation. Anti-Semitism always portrays Jews as being immensely powerful at the other end of the scale, something to be feared because they can pull all the strings, because they have the money, because they control the politicians. So in as far as left-wing thought is emancipatory, anti-Semitism can fit into that framework because Jews are portrayed as powerful.
Anti-Semitism in the contemporary far left is rarely expressed in the explicit and direct anti-Jewish manner that characterizes anti-Semitism in the far right. It also differs from the more blatant forms that emanated from certain circles of the left prior to the Holocaust. That being said, the anti-Semitism found in this political sphere does build on many of the pre-Holocaust anti-Jewish tropes and perceptions, particularly those viewing the Jews as an omnipotent, powerful, world-dominating conspiratorial force.